Hello, good evening, everybody. So, as we speak this evening on Monday, we just have 5 more days to go for your NEET 2025 exam. So, how are you all doing? Hope you all geared up and doing your best. I'm sure that you might have completed all your grand tests or full length tests, whatever you call it. So, and you're now going through those paper analysis and then patching up all those small errors that you have committed during last 2 to 3 weeks of your exams. And now don't pick up any new topic. It is all about revising. It is all about revising. Do not pick up any new topic. My sincere advice, rather request, is do not pick up any new topic because it is going to change, okay, or recalibrate the entire setting that you have, okay, regarding your preparation. So don't pick up any new topics. Stay cool, stay away from gossiping, eat well, sleep well, and it is all about mental game now. It is all about mental game. How confident you are, okay, that's what going to deliver on the day of your exam. As I keep on repeatedly saying, okay, clarity brings confidence. Clarity brings confidence. Okay, what you are good at and what you are not good at, and leaving a question, not tempting. Okay, do not fall for the temptation of attempting a question. చూడండి, ఓకే, ఆ క్వశ్చన్ మీకు రాలేదు అంటే దయచేసి అటెంప్ట్ చేయకండి, because you're going to lose the marks. You're going to lose the marks. Okay, stay away from bubbling those. And one more mistake many students commit is bubble the entire answers towards the end. That's not going to work out either. So either 5, 10 questions how you want to bubble. So make bubbling at small intervals rather than bubbling the entire things towards the end, because you mark the answers on the question paper but you go for a bubbling, okay, to a different question. So all these mistakes do happen regularly. So don't lose your hard end marks by committing these silly mistakes. So without any waste of time, let me start the last session, rather the last class in this entire series of assertions and reasoning. Okay, plant morphology. Okay, so let's see some questions over here. Let's see the first question. The primary roots and its branches constitute the taproot system, which is very true. Taproot system is seen in the mustard plant, which is true, but is it explaining how actually taproot system is formed? No, it is not. So I would go with the answer, okay, B. I would go with the answer B. Both assertion and reasoning are true, and it is not explaining how actually taproots are formed. So I would go with B as the answer. Assertion and reasoning are true, but it is not the right explanation. Okay, let's see the next question. Adventitious roots are found in banyan tree. Yes. In banyan tree, the adventitious roots arise from parts of the plant other than the radicle, which is true, and that's the reason why any roots that arise, any roots that are formed from other than radicle, okay, are called as adventitious roots. And for example, even fibrous roots are also kind of adventitious roots. So both the statements are true, and indeed it is the right explanation as well. Clear? Let's go for the next question. The region of meristematic activity in root is responsible for growth of the root in terms of length. Region of meristematic activity in root is responsible for growth of the length. No, not meristematic activity. Okay, not this region, not this region. Okay, not the meristematic region. It is the elongation region. It is the region of elongation. It is the region of elongation that is actually responsible for the growth of the root in length. Am I clear? Am I clear? Hello? So the first statement assertion is false. Let's see the reason. The cells of the region of meristematic activity are very small, thin walled with a dense protoplasm, which are the features of the meristematic cells. So which is true. So assertion is false, reason is true. I would go with the D as the answer. I would go with the D as the answer. Am I clear? Hello? Next one. Stems of maize and sugar cane growing in swampy areas? No, no. They don't grow in swampy areas. They are proper tropical plants. Okay, so this is false. Stems of maize and sugar cane growing in swampy areas grow a special type of roots that helps to get the oxygen for respiration? No, Baba. It's false. It's false. In rhizopora, yes, rhizopora. Okay, I've seen here these grow, which grows in swampy areas. Many roots come out of the ground and grow vertically upward. Such roots are called nematophores, which is true. In these plants, roots become roots, okay, are positively phototropic. Okay, these nematophores, okay, these roots are positively phototropic. So I would go with assertion is false and reason is true. D as the answer. D as the answer. Is it clear? Hello? Let's go for the next one. Underground stems of potato, ginger, turmeric, jamaican, colocasia are modified to store food in them. Which is true? Which is true? All these are stem modifications. Underground stems acts as organs of permeation to tide over conditions unfavorable for growth, which is true. But it is not actually explaining, okay, how these stems are modified to store the food. So I would go with both the statements are true, but it is not the right explanation. So the answer will be the B. Answer will be B. Both are true and it is not the right explanation. And it is not the right explanation. Let's go for the next one. The region of the stem where leaves are born are called as nodes, which is true. Internodes are the portions between the two nodes, which is true, which is true. But indeed, okay, it is not actually explaining why the leaves are developing only at the nodes. That is not, okay, expressed or rather explained in our reason statement. So I would go with B as the answer. I would go with B as the answer. Both the statements are true, okay, and it is not the right explanation. And it is not the right explanation. Let's see the next question. Stem tendrils are slender and spirally coiled. True, true. Stem tendrils in gourds and grapevines help them in climbing. Help them in climbing. Okay, so I would say both the statements are true, but it is not the correct explanation. It is not the correct explanation. So how come they are slender and spirally coiled? Okay, that is not properly explained. Next, The calyx is the outermost whorl of the flower. The calyx is the outermost whorl of the flower, which we know. Okay, the whorl of sepals is called as calyx. So we are clear about that. The calyx may be gamosepalous or polysepalous. Yes, true. But let's see what is written within the parentheses or the brackets. In Rasarikada, gamosepalous, which is sepalous, sepals are free. No, gamo matlab, okay, the sepals are united. The sepals are united. Okay, polysepalous matlab, the sepals are free. Sepals are free. So this should have been the right statement, since it is saying the other way round. Since it is saying the other way round, I would go with A as true and the R as false. R is false. So I would go with the D as the answer. I would go with the D as the answer. I would go with D as the answer. So D as the answer, because this is wrong. Next one. The inferior ovary is found in the flowers of guava and cucumber. Guava and cucumber, which is true, which is true, which is true. In guava and cucumber, gynoecium is situated in the center and other parts of the flower are located in the rim of the thalamus, almost at the same level. No, 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 no. Where in the previous statement we are saying the inferior ovary is found in the flowers. That means the remaining will be on the top of it, right? So this is false. Where are the rim? Okay, rim are those, okay, these perigynous flowers. So this is false. This is false. So I would say A is true and the R is false as a statement. R is false as a statement. Okay. Next. Leaves are often modified to perform functions other than photosynthesis, which is true. The spiny leaves of onion and garlic store food, not the spiny ones, the scaly leaves, right? So the scaly leaves of onion and garlic store the food. So I would say reason as false, okay, but assertion is true. So the answer will be A is true and reason is false, and reason is false. Let's see the next question. Let's see the next question. Let's see the next question. శ్రీకాంత్ సేస్ దట్ సార్ భయం అవుతుంది సార్. శ్రీకాంత్ భయపడితే ఎలా ఇప్పుడు? ఇన్ని రోజులు వెయిట్ చేసింది దీనికోసమే కదా. సో భయపడితే ఏం చేయలేం. వాట్ విల్ హ్యాపెన్ అట్ ద మోస్ట్? You'll not clear it, right? But you'll learn a lesson, okay, and you realize what are the mistakes that you have done, okay, in this year during your preparation. That's it, nothing else will happen. So భయపడకండి, చెప్పాను కదా, కాన్ఫిడెన్స్ ఎప్పుడు వస్తుంది? క్లారిటీ ఉన్నప్పుడు. సో ఇప్పుడు భయపడితే ఉన్నది కూడా పోతుంది. సో భయపడకండి, ఓకే. సో భయపడకుండా ఎగ్జామ్ రాయండి. Let's see the next question. Let's see the next question. Fruit is a mature or a ripened ovary developed after fertilization, which is true, which is true, which is true. What does the next statement says? The ovules after fertilization develop into seeds, but it is not actually explaining, okay, how, okay, the matured ovary is becoming into a fruit. So I would go with B as the answer. I would go with B as the answer. Let's go for the next one. Let's go for the next one. Let's go for the next one. The growth of the apex is limited in cymose type of inflorescence, which is true, which is true. Okay, let's see the statement. Reason: in cymose type of inflorescence, the main axis terminates into the flower. That's the reason why the growth is limited. So I would say both the statements are true, and indeed it is the right explanation as well. And indeed it is the right explanation as well. Next one. Next one. Calyx and corolla are accessory organs in a flower. Calyx and corolla are accessory organs in a flower, which is true, which is true, which is true, isn't it? Let's see the next statement. Androecium and gynoecium are the reproductive organs in a flower, which are two different statements. So I would say, okay, both the statements are right, but it is not the right explanation. So I would go with C as the answer. I would go C as the answer. Next. Next. The stamens in a flower, the stamens in a flower of China rose is united into one bundle. True. Stamens in a flower of citrus is united into two bundles. Two bundles. Okay, I don't think so. Okay, in citrus, okay, they are united into two bundles. They are free. Okay, they are free. Okay, so those are free. So I would say this is false. Assertion is true and reason is false. And reason is false. So I would go with C as the answer. I would go with C as the answer. I would go with C as the answer. So there are more than two, right? So it is polydelphous. So more than two. More than two. More than two. More than two in citrus. Next one. Next one. The flower of Datura shows actinomorphic symmetry, which is true. The flower of Datura can be divided into two equal radial halves in any plane, okay, passing through the center. Yes, that's the reason why it is called as actinomorphic. So both the statements are true, and it is indeed the right explanation as well. And indeed it is the right explanation as well. Let's see the next question. Let's see the next question. Leaves of dicotyledonous plants generally possesses reticulate venation, which is true, which is true. Let's see the reason statement. Excuse. Let's see the reason statement. Parallel venation in the leaves is a characteristic of most monocotyledons, which are two different statements. So it is not the right explanation. I would go with B as the answer. Both the statements are individually right, but it is not linked to the assertion. So I would go with B as the answer. I would go with B as the answer. Let's see the next one. Let's see the next one. In calotropis plants, a pair of leaves arise at each node and lie opposite to each other, which is true. Which is true. In Alstonia plants, more than two leaves arise at a node and form a world phyllotaxy. Okay, opposite phyllotaxy. Hello, alternate phyllotaxy. I would say both the statements are true, but it is not the right explanation. But it is not the right explanation. Let's go for the next question. P shows marginal placentation. P shows the marginal placentation, which is true. In P, placenta forms a ridge along the ventral suture of the ovary, and the ovules are born on this ridge, forming two rows. You might have seen మనం ఓకే ఏంటి ఆ గ్రీన్ పీస్ కానీ లేకపోతే చిక్కుడు కాయలు కానీ చూస్తుంటాము. ఒక వెంట్రల్ సూచర్ ఉంటుంది, దానికి ప్లసంటా ఉంటుంది, ఇలా ఓపెన్ చేస్తే రెండు వైపు గింజలు ఉంటాయి. సో ఐ వుడ్ సే బోత్ ది స్టేట్మెంట్స్ ఆర్ ట్రూ. Okay, and it is the right explanation as well, and it is the right explanation as well. I will go with B as the answer. I would go with B as the answer. Next one. What does the next question states? When stamens are attached to the petals, they are called epipetals, which is true. For example, lily. Okay, when stamens in a flower are, no, not lily. Okay, not lily. What did I say? Okay, epipetals, right? So what did I say? Epipetals. For example, brinjal. Brinjal is an epipetalis. Example is brinjal. Brinjal is an epipetalis. Brinjal is an epipetalis. When the stamens are attached to the petals, they are called as epipetalis, which is true. When stamens in a flower are attached to the perianth, okay, they are called as epiphyllus, which lily can be taken as an example. Which lily can be taken as an example for this one. Lily can be taken as an example for epiphyllus, which are two different things. I would say both the statements are true, and it is not actually explaining. I would go with B as the answer. I would go with B as the answer. Let's go for the next question. Bean flower shows vexillary aestivation. Bean flower shows vexillary aestivation, which is true. There are 5 petals in bean flowers. The largest is called a standard. Overlaps the 2 lateral petals, okay, which in turn overlap the 2 smallest one, which is called as the kale. So this is your standard petal, this is called as your wings, okay, and these are called as your keel. So I would say, okay, both of them are true, and it is explaining what D is meant by vexillary aestivation. I would go with A as the answer. Let's see the next question. A leaf is said to be simple when its lamina is entire, or when incised the incisions do not touch the midrib. So when the entire leaf lamina is present like this, it is called as simple leaf. Or the leaf lamina, okay, is incised, okay, let's see, like this. As long as it is not touching the midrib, okay, it is still called as a simple leaf. This is also simple leaf, because the incision is not touching the midrib. Both are simple leaves. As you know, leaves are of 2 types: simple leaves, compound leaves, and the compound leaves are of 2 types, that's pinnately compound and palmately compound. If all of them arises on one common axis, okay, which looks like a palm, that is called as palmately compound. Okay, so I would say, okay, assertion as a statement is true. Let's see the reason. Let's see the reason. What does it state? When the incisions of the lamina reach up to the midrib, breaking into a number of leaflets, it is called as compound leaf, which are two individual statements. It is not the explanation. So I would go with B as the answer. I would go with B as the answer. Clear? Let's go for the next question. Let's go for the next question. The ovary in hypogynous flower is said to be superior. The ovary in hypogynous flower is said to be superior, which is true, which is true, which is true, which is true. Okay, can you give me an examples? Can you give me an example of hypogynous, okay, with a superior ovary? MCB, MCB, okay, mustard, China rose, and brinjal, China rose and brinjal. Okay, these are the examples of the hypogynous flower, okay, with a superior ovary. Let's see the next statement. What does the next statement says? What does the next statement says? What is the next statement saying? What is the next statement saying? The in the hypogynous flower, in the hypogynous flower, the gynoecium occupies the highest position, while the other parts are situated below it. Hence, it is called as a hypogynous flower, superior ovary. Okay, so I would say both the statements are true, and indeed it is the right explanation. I would go with, okay, I would go with A as your answer. I would go with A as your answer. Next one. In mango and coconut, the fruit is known as drupe. In mango and coconut, the fruit is known as drupe. Okay, which is true. In coconut, the mesocarp is fibrous. In coconut, the mesocarp is fibrous. Okay, you know epicarp and mesocarp are fused, okay, and they are fibrous. Endocarp is stony, hard. So I would say both the statements are true. Both the statements are true, but it is not actually explaining it. So I would go with, okay, I would go with C as the answer. Both the statements are true, but it is not actually explaining. But it is not actually explaining. Next question. Sunflower plants show alternate type of phyllotaxy. Sunflowers plants show alternate type of phyllotaxy. Yes, yes, which is true, which is true, which is true. Along with that, along with that, okay, we have China rose, mustard, also show the alternate type of phyllotaxy. China rose, mustard, and sunflower shows the alternate. Next, in sunflower plant, a single a single leaf arises at each node in an alternate manner. That's the reason why it is called as alternative phyllotaxy. I would say both the statements are true, and indeed it is the correct explanation as well. And indeed it is the correct explanation as well. Let's see the next one. Thorns are found. Thorns are found in many plants such as citrus and bougainvillea, which is true. Thorns protect plants from browsing animals, which is true. Okay, which is true. But what which actually forms the thorns, that should have been the proper explanation. So I would go with both the statements are true, but it is not exactly explaining. Okay, he should have talked about, okay, which actual part, okay, develops into thorns. That would have been the appropriate explanation. So I would go with B as the answer. Let's see the next question. Let's see the next question. A flower is asymmetric, irregular if it cannot be divided into two similar halves by any vertical plane passing through the center, which is true. Kana flowers show irregular symmetry, okay, which is true. So I would say both the statements are correct. I would say both the statements are correct. Let's go for the next question. The type of excavation found in Gulmohar is imbricate, which is true. In the flowers of Gulmohar, margins of the sepals or petals overlap one over one another, but not in a particular direction. So it is true. I would say both the statements are true as well. I would say both the statements are true as well. So yeah, it is right? Yeah. So along with Gulmohar, you have Cassia as well. Along with Gulmohar, you have Cassia and Gulmohar both exhibit the imbricate excavation. Next, let's go for the next question. In a monocot seed, the outer covering of the endosperm separates the embryo by a proteinaceous layer called as alluron layer, which is true. Monocotyledon seed are endospermic, but some in orchids, those are non-endospermic, which is true. So I would say both the statements are true. I would say both the statements are true. Let's see the next question. Let's see the next question. Let's see the next question. In euphorbia, stem is modified into a flattened structure. No, not flattened. That is opuntia. It is cylindrical, right? Cylindrical. Okay, so this is false. In opuntia, stem is modified into a fleshy cylindrical structure. No. Okay, flattened. Okay, not okay, cylindrical, flattened. So it should be the other way around, then it would have been correct. So I would say both the statements are incorrect. Both the statements are incorrect. Let's see the next question. Let's see the next question. Leaves originate from shoot apical meristem, meristems, and are arranged in an acropetal manner, which is true. Leaves are the most important vegetative organs for photosynthesis. So I would say both the statements are correct. I would say both the statements are correct. Let's go for the next one. Let's go for the next one. Underground stems of plants such as grass and strawberry, etc., spread to new niches, and when older parts die, new parts are formed, which is true. In plants like mint and jasmine, a slender lateral branch arises from the base of the main axis, and after going aerially for some time, arches down to touch the ground. I'm sure in jasmine it is true. Mint, let me think about it. Mint, I'm not sure that. Okay, you have that it mint and jasmine. Let's see the statements once again. Let's see the statement once again. What does it says? In plants like mint and jasmine, a center lateral branch arises from the base of the main axis and grows aerially for some time and arch downwards to touch the ground. Yes, jasmine is true. Yes, mint is also true. So I would say both the statements are correct. I would say both the statements are correct. Both the statements are correct. I would go with A as the answer. I would go with A as the answer. In plants like mint and jasmine, a central lateral branch arises from the base of the main axis. Yeah, I would say both are correct. I would say both of them are correct. Next one. Next one. The shape, margin, apex, surface. The shape, margin, apex, surface and extension of incision of lamina are same in different leaves. How come? How can they be same? No, they are different. That's the reason why you will see many kinds of leaves. Veins provide rigidity to the leaf blade and act as a channels for transport of water, mineral ions and food materials, which is true. So is there any statement like that? Statement 1 is incorrect, statement 2 is correct. So I would go with C as the answer. I would go with C as the answer. Let's see the next question. Let's see the next question. A bud is present in the axil of leaflets of the compound leaf. A bud is present. A bud is present in the axis of leaflets of the compound leaf. No. Here, compound leaf matlab this one. So you don't see a bud over here. We see, okay, main thing, main, okay, axis. Over here, bud is seen. So I would say this one is false. I would say statement 1 is false. Let's see the second one. There is no bud present in the axil of petiole in both simple and compound leaf. What rubbish. We can see buds, okay, at least in the simple leaves. Okay, even in compound leaves, but at least minimum to minimum simple leaves में दिखता है भाई. So I would say both the statements are incorrect. I would say both the statements are incorrect. I would go with both the statements are incorrect. Let's see the next question. Let's see the next question. In some plants such as Australian acacia, the leaves are small and short-lived. In plants like Australian acacia, the leaves are small and short-lived. Yes, which is true. The petioles in Australian acacia plants expand, become green and synthesizes the food, which is true. So both the statements are correct. Both the statements are correct. Both the statements are correct. Direct NCERT lines, both of them. Next one. For flowering, shoot apical meristem changes to floral meristem. For flowering, shoot apical meristem changes to floral meristem, which is true. Which is true. A flower is a modified shoot. A flower is a modified shoot. What does it say? Is it true? Is it true? A flower is a modified shoot. Yes. Yes. Both of them are correct. Both of them are correct. Both of them are correct. Next. When sepals or petals in a whorl, just touch one another at the margin, without overlapping, is called as volvate estivation, which is true, which is true. Volvate estivation is seen in calotropis, which is true. I would say both the statements are true. Let's go for the next question. Each stamen which represents the male reproductive organ consists of stalk or a filament and an anther, which sounds true for me. Each anther is usually bilobed, and each lobe has two chambers, the pollen sacs, which is true as well. So both the statements are correct. Let's see the next one. In the gynoecium of mustard and tomato, carpels are free. In the gynoecium of the mustard and tomato, the carpels are free. Are they? I don't think so. In gynoecium of mustard and tomato, okay, the carpels are free. Which is polypetalis. I don't think so. Yeah, false. Next, in the gynoecium of the lotus and rose, carpels are united. Nope. So I would say both the statements are incorrect. Let's go for the next question. The flower is trimerous. When floral appendages are in multiple of 3, which is true. The flower is pentamerous when the floral appendages are in multiples of 4. No, 5. So the answer will be statement 1 is correct and statement 2 is incorrect. So the answer is the second one, B. Let's go for the next one. The pattern of arrangement of leaves on the stem or branch is termed as inflorescence. The pattern of arrangement of leaves on the stem or branch is termed as inflorescence. What rubbish. Okay, false. The arrangement of flowers on the floral axis is termed as phyllotaxy. No, false. So the answer would be the arrangement of flowers on the floral axis is called as phyllotaxy. No, the arrangement of leaves, okay, is called as phyllotaxy. So both the statements are incorrect. I would go with 4 as the answer. Okay, D statement will be the answer. Okay, so these are some of the questions. Okay, few assertion and reasoning and some statement based questions, and many students are asking me, so what about those new families? Okay, should we study them? As I told you, okay, in NCERT textbook there is no prescribed lesson or any information on that, and such families are huge. So where are the boundaries? The boundaries are not defined. So instead of rote learning and making mistakes about those new, okay, enormous families, try to stick to the families that are given in our NCERT textbook already, so which will fetch you marks rather than, okay, taking it complete, okay, a lottery of which might turn up. So I would ask you to stick to the new, okay, NCERT families. That is more than sufficient. Okay, so what can I say now? 5 more days. Okay, ఇంకా 5 రోజులు మాత్రమే ఉంది. I wish, okay, that I can take some names over here from my batches, okay, and tell you tell those students that I have confidence in you that you can definitely crack the NEET exam. కానీ ఇలా చెప్పడం వల్ల ఏమైనా added pressure ఏమన్నా మీ మీద పడుతుందేమో అనేసి I'm not able to take the names, but you guys know whom I'm talking about. That many times I sat with you people, I told that I believe in you, I have confidence that you can do. Okay, why don't you believe in yourself? ఈ విషయం చాలాసార్లు చెప్పు ఉంటాను. నాకు మీ మీద నమ్మకం ఉంది, నాకు నమ్మకం ఉంది, మీ మీద మీరు నమ్మకం ఉంచుకోండి. ఖచ్చితంగా మీరు నీట్ ఈసారి ఖచ్చితంగా సాధించగలుగుతారు అని నా డ్రాపర్ స్టూడెంట్స్కి అందరికీ చెప్పాను. సో ప్లీజ్ just 5 more days. Stick to a routine. Don't wake up randomly midnight and go crazy and then you couldn't sleep the other day. అలాంటి పిచ్చి పనులు ఏం చేయకుండా మంచిగా తినండి, మంచిగా నిద్రపోండి. ఒక డే టైంలోనో వీలైనంత వరకు మీ రివిజన్ని కంప్లీట్ చేసుకోండి. కొత్త టాపిక్స్ ఇప్పుడు మొదలు పెట్టకండి, అది బ్యాక్ ఫైర్ అవుతుంది. దయచేసి కొత్త టాపిక్స్ని ఇప్పుడు మొదలు పెట్టకండి. గాన్ ఈజ్ గాన్. ఇప్పుడు నువ్వు కొత్తగా నేర్చుకొని చేసేది ఏముండదు. దానికి బదులుగా లాస్ట్ 2 వీక్స్లో మీరు ఏమేమైతే ఎగ్జామ్స్ రాస్తున్నారో, ఆ ఎగ్జామ్స్లో ఏ మిస్టేక్స్ అయితే చేసి ఉన్నారో వాటిని ఒకసారి మళ్ళీ పేపర్ అనాలిసిస్ చేసుకోండి. మీరు డైరెక్ట్గా చదివి గుర్తుపెట్టుకున్న వాటికన్నా మీరు ఎగ్జామ్లో తప్పులు చేసి మళ్ళీ ఈవినింగ్ వెళ్ళి ఎన్సీఆర్టీ ఓపెన్ చేసి మీ రైట్ ఆన్సర్ని ఏదైతే ఫిగర్ అవుట్ చేసి ఉంటారో అలాంటివే మీకు ఎక్కువ కాలం గుర్తుంటాయి. అండ్ దట్స్ ద రీజన్ వై ఐ ఆస్క్ ఆల్ మై స్టూడెంట్స్ టు రైట్ ఎగ్జామ్, బికాస్ వెన్ యూ రైట్ ఎగ్జామ్ అండ్ మేక్ మిస్టేక్స్ and then do the paper analysis so even if anybody wants to give couple more exams, I would say give it for another 2 or 3 days, but not towards the end of the week. If you want to give exam, at maximum is stop it by Thursday. Don't give exams thereafter. At most Thursday. Not after that. After that you need to revise. So when you are going to exam, you better go through the NCRT. Friday and Saturday it is for bio. నేను ఎప్పుడు క్లాస్లో చెప్తూ ఉంటాను, మ్యాక్సిమం టైం ఫిజిక్స్ కెమిస్ట్రీకి, కానీ ఫ్రైడే సాటర్డే ఈజ్ ఫర్ బయాలజీ. అండ్ ఈవినింగ్ టైమ్స్లో ఆ ఫార్ములేస్ అన్ని చూసుకోండి. ఎందులో ఫిజిక్స్ కెమిస్ట్రీలో ఫార్ములేస్ ఇవి గుర్తుపెట్టుకోండి. సో ఫ్రమ్ మీ I wish you all the best, and in every prayer of mine all of you are there. Thank you very much and see you next time. Thank you.